Hello everyone and welcome back to PSGL here for F9 on the PlayStation platform. We're here at a soggy Canadian Grand Prix circuit here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. It's looking very, very wet for qualifying. Well, one day that'll stay that way for the race. I'm your commentator Jackson, and alongside me, with his new fancy PSN, is NSR Storm.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and good evening to everyone for PSGL F9. Obviously, at the Canadian Grand Prix before the week break, which will be next week for the United States Grand Prix, and we are probably going to be in for an absolute banger of a race in PSGL. We are going to start on the wet compound tyre. We may see some intermediate tyres later on in the evening, but we are going to start on the wets.
Yeah, it is looking a sodden circuit out on the streets of Montreal. I suppose this is a street circuit. It's a strange one. Technically it is a street circuit, but it was a purpose-built street, I suppose, in a way. It's an odd one in that sense, but it does make for brilliant racing, whether dry or wet, as 2011 proved. There's a few cars out on track now trying to get some laps in. I don't know if it'll be staying this way. Hopefully we'll get an update from the drivers on the forecast. We could well see a switch to intermediates in the session if the rain does die down a little bit and the cars clear all that standing water, but at the moment it is definitely full wet conditions out there, as hyped as he prepares for his first lap and validates immediately, which I think is a quick reminder that we're in Canada, which of course is a tough track for track limits.
Yeah, just a bit of a thing on the weather update. It will be a full wet session, and then it will be a potential dry race. If I can kind of understand the admin's message, but we are in for a full wet qualifying.
Hyped there, drifting his way through the streets at the moment. Not really. Clearly, he's not enjoying his wet circuit laps at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be quite the transition from qualifying to the race, I think. So expect these guys to all be on probably dry setups, so they could well struggle quite a bit in this qualifying session.
Yeah, I'm just going to double check with the tier admin the race weather, because his coded message wasn't that great. But also a new change, which may not be in by the time we come back for Japan, is the white Red Bull livery that we get to see in the wet conditions. And I tell you what, that is an absolute fantastic livery, and it looking better even in the rain.
Indeed it is, and it really is going to stand out on the track today, especially the help that, I don't know if you've seen, Felix 1 has got a very bright green helmet, so you cannot miss that Red Bull. Not only is the car almost completely white, but it's got a very clear, standing out, bright green helmet behind the wheel, so that's going to be a car that you won't be able to miss during the race. So if you see a Red Bull with a bright green helmet, that is Felix, who I believe is reserving for the Red Bull team today.
Yeah, and the noticeable, well, from the steward, should I say, as Vavabet did have a qualifying ban and he had set a valid lap, so that is going to be investigated, I presume, further by the stewards. He had an incident last week in Portugal, so he wasn't allowed to set a qualifying lap, but he has, so that will be investigated further by the stewards.
I think he might now be trying to take himself out, perhaps in recognition of the fact that he shouldn't have qualified in the first place, but I mean, he's already set a valid lap. It's a slow one, but it's still a valid lap, so I don't know what the exact rulings on that are, and he could well be blocking this McLaren behind him, I'm not sure. So Vavabet, not exactly proving that his one-off sort of tough race in Portugal was a one-off indeed, because so far this has not been the best of sessions for him, given that he wasn't supposed to. Of course, you're allowed to do out laps, and that I would imagine, just to obviously save your setup and get a feel for the track with a valid lap. Not allowed. Maybe that rule needs to be clarified for Vavabet in particular.
I just have received a message. Vavabet must DSQ himself immediately from qualifying.
And instead he's going to go full speed into the pit lane. I know he has actually slowed down. But yeah, so he's clearly not yet planning to disqualify himself. Maybe he'll exit the pits and just block the pit exit. That might be a shout. As Felix 1 goes to the top of the timesheets, the distinctive driver and that distinctive car are now top of the timesheets. with a 120.2. It's quite close so far, especially given the wet conditions. Of course, when it is wet, with the track changing lap by lap, expect slightly bigger gaps than usual between the drivers. But to only have a 4/10 gap up front, that's quite a small gap, especially early on in qualifying. And I expect to not only see this track improve throughout the session, as Felix 1 is already almost 3 temps up in Sector 1. Not only will this track improve, but the driver will have a better feeling for the track. And these wet conditions, as Felix big slide on the exit in that corner, the drivers and track, I'm sure, will improve and increase our lap time significantly throughout the session. So that's unless a monsoon hits the circuit, which we're not far off at the moment. Unless a monsoon hits at the moment, I think that's a lap time that is only going to be a provisional pole, and we'll almost definitely see that lap time set by Felix beaten at some point in this session.
Yeah, and just looking through a bit of the chat from the a few of the drivers, it seems to be that there was an altercation at the pit exit between Felix and, I believe it was, I can find him, where is he? It was Mentos. They both have had an altercation at the pit exit as Mentos was on a lap, and Felix, I believe, may have blocked him, so that may be why his lap time is down if he has set one.
Mentos is yet to set lap time. Interesting to see in the pit lane, Carlsbury has put the medium tyres on. Don't ignore me, not mediums, intermediate tyres on. Felix at the moment, if this, as an improvement, Twosome goes to top by 17 milliseconds, Felix as spins around, he's out of the session. Oh, that is dramatic there. That's a tiny touch with the wall, and Felix's front left suspension has given way there. That was clearly not taped together very well, and that is Felix out of the session after a small mistake. We've seen him get a bit squirrely on the exit of that corner a couple times now, and that time there was no recovering it, and he is out of the session. So a driver that had been setting the lap times a light early on is now out of the session.
Yeah, I'm just going to ride on board with Carlsbury on his outlap just to see what he's like on these intermediate tyres, because it is raining quite heavy, as quite a lot of the drivers are on the wet compound tyre. This is the other Red Bull, so there's Sector 2 yellow flags. That's a car in front of him. That is an Alfa Romeo. That may be Car and Rob.
I think they might be out of fuel.
Yeah, as we keep on board with Carlsbury, he hasn't had the best of seasons. It has been up and down, some might say, as he now invalidates his outlap. But there is a lot of traffic on the track at the moment, so he's going to want to try and find that sweet spot, especially on the intermediates. We've seen in Turkey in the last F1 race, you can go on a whole race on one set of tyres, as Ocon did it. Obviously Hamilton, a different story, but maybe he's just getting a feel of the intermediates. Obviously the race will be a dry race, so these will be using dry setups, so it's definitely going to be an interesting one, I think, if the rain does dry up.
Yeah, let's see what Carlsbury can do here on the intermediate tyres. The track doesn't look that wet, to be honest, at the moment. A few more drivers in the pit lane equipping the intermediate. I need to stop saying a medium. Equipping the intermediate tyres. Carlsbury is sliding around a lot out there at the moment, trying to just get the throttle down. But it doesn't. I mean, I don't think it's quite intermediate tyres ready yet. We'll see what his sector time is and see if he's improving. But at the moment, it looks perhaps like, and he is 4 temps down his best. I think it's not quite there, but we're not far. We're at sort of a transition period now. They're very close in terms of grip. As I say, that Carlsbury slides into the wall, but it does seem close in terms of the grip between the two tyres at the moment. So by the end of this session, I would expect it to be onto the fully intermediate conditions.
Yeah, it just seems it's a bit of a slippery Red Bull at the moment for Carlsbury. He'll probably know that his Red Bull teammate has DNF, but he is still in P2 on the wet compound tyre. So I believe Carlsbury is the first intermediate tyre driver that will cross the line on a flying lap. So we will keep on board with him as he comes down the long DRS straight into the Wall of Champions, a very iconic part of the track. He's going to cross the line and he's not invalidated, so he will stay where he is in P5 with a 120.9.
Just looking at the chat at the moment, I believe that it wasn't actually Felix who blocked Mentos. I believe that was a mistake.
Okay.
So that's Felix. I mean, if he was still in the session, he would be safe of any penalty. So he's not in the session at all, so that's not really going to make too much of a difference for him now.
Yeah.
Lars up in third at the moment. We see more and more drivers equipping the medium tyres. I keep saying medium. I don't know why. I am very sorry, everyone. But more and more drivers equipping the intermediate tyre and trying to go quick with that. I don't think it's quite intermediate tyres ready yet, but I think we could well get there before the end of the session. 13 drivers currently setting a lap time. Valabet is yet to disqualify himself, and not really sure if he has any intention of doing. He's on an outlap at the moment. His best bet is probably just to go straight on at the hairpin and try and park all the way at the end there, because then he's got no chance of blocking anyone.
And he is now sitting on the track as he's letting through a few drivers. He has to de-escalate himself. Yeah, he was instructed and informed by a tier admin as he has set a lap on a qualifying ban as well. So not a great start for the new F9 driver in PSGL. He's going to have to de-escalate himself somewhere as he was handed a qualifying ban in Portugal for a qualifying lap block that he did on which, no coincidence this week, was his teammate that he is with this week, which was CPI Daniel.
Interesting. Black Yoshi just crashed on the circuit. I'm hoping that the car hasn't disappeared by the time that Jamie gets to it. Of course it has, just as Jamie arrives. That is an odd place to crash. I'm guessing if that was a legitimate crash, that was probably similar to Felix's of just losing the rear and hitting the barriers. But that is Black Yoshi's session over in the Williams team. Seeing more and more drivers on the intermediate tyres. Jamie's about to start his flying lap, so let's have a look at what he can do. Because he's joined mid-session, the game has given him all of the Nikita Mazepin stuff, so he has got the number 9, he's got the helmet, so Nikita is making his way out of turn 2 now. And intermediates, they just don't look to be clearing the amount of water they need to. Just on the exits of corners, just spinning the rears so much. And he's nearly around there, that was close. And let's see, I don't think that, as he is currently improving on his lap time, to be fair. So whilst it may not look especially quick, perhaps it may actually be quick, who knows. But Jamie trying to make his way around the circuit. On my screen, the wet tyre, the tyre that had fallen off Felix's car is still on the track, which I find quite amusing. But obviously not ideal. Hopefully none of the drivers can see that for their own sake, and hopefully it doesn't actually exist. I hope that's just a small glitch in the game, one of many. But Jamie around the hairpin now, trying to improve his lap time. You can just see there on the corner exit, just sliding the rears. He's still, he's almost entirely around that kink before he gets to full throttle. It's crazy how long it takes those tyres to grip up. Perhaps a gentler right foot might help him there, but at the moment, and he is going to pit, so well, it's a scary pit entry, but he is into the pits now, so perhaps too soon for the intermediate tyres, but it's going to be, I think everyone's going to go for inters at the end, so if it ends up being the wrong decision, that could be interesting.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting that Mentos is now the highest wet tyre runner in P6, as Daniel has now opted for, no, Daniel's gone back from inters to wet, so maybe
if you look at the best lap time set, it's the only person with the highest person with their best lap on intermediates is Carmen Robin 5th. So at the moment, I don't think it's intermediate red. Forget that, it is. Pachuca has just gone quickest on the intermediate tyres. Forget that insight.
Yeah, and he's already had a pole this season, as he's the only driver in the PSGL F9. Oh, as Bandini goes for a spin in the same place, I believe, where Hamilton and Vettel a few years ago had that iconic incident. And he's going to have to be careful, as there is, I believe, an Aston Martin coming round. He will now get back going, I believe. But what has that cost him? He's still got his wing, but that will have an effect on him.
So that's going to perhaps damage his tyres as well, which obviously wouldn't help him later on in the session when he does actually go for a flying lap. You notice a lot of these guys have come out perhaps earlier than they would if it was a dry track. a lot of these guys are probably going for 2 or 3 laps just so that they can get a sort of bit of momentum in their laps, because that is obviously something that is quite important in these sorts of conditions. You need to know the conditions well, because if you've been in the pit lane for half the session, you have no idea how much grip is out on the circuit, and 1 outlap might not be enough for you to sort of truly learn the conditions. So a lot of these guys may well go for multiple laps at the end of the session, so don't be surprised if we see flying laps from now until the end of the session.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, obviously I know this is a virtual game, this isn't real life. As we saw in Turkey in the last F1, it takes the intermediates, well obviously we didn't see the wet tyre, but the intermediate a few laps just to get out that graining phase and really bring themselves up to that optimal area, that place where they can get the maximum use out of them. Because it is on the intermediate tyre now for all the drivers except from Daniel. He keeps telling me he's switching between intermediate and the wet tyre, so maybe he doesn't know what tyre he wants to be on, as there's a Sector 3 yellow flag.
I believe that might be someone just going slowly at the moment to back up for their lap.
As Vavabet has now retired.
And that isn't disqualification, so they've got nothing, they can't disqualify themselves now. So that's Vavabet. I mean, I don't know what the protocol is. What is the protocol if someone does not obey a qualifying ban?
Well, I believe, as I've seen from the admin chat, he has been DSQ'd from qualifying at the moment. I don't know if that will apply to the race, as he set a lap on a qualifying ban, which was obviously given to him by the stewards in PSGL last week for a qualifying blocking of his teammate that he's got this week. So I would not want to be in that party chat. Yeah, so Daniel, quite interestingly, has gone on the wet compound tyre, who's sitting in P4. This is going to be potentially his best qualifying position this season so far. If he can pull this off on the wet compound tyre and he can find some time, we could see CPI Daniel maybe top 5, top 6 if nobody can improve, as there's now 12 seconds on the clock.
Yep, these guys, their final chance at a flying lap. Let's see if the track is intermediate ready. If it isn't, Daniel may have gone with the right strategy here. As you've got yellow flags on the straight, I believe that is a Williams going sliding out as Dustley, who has spun. And that's a curious one. It says he's crossed the finish line, but he's spun. Is AI in control of this car? Looks like an AI. I hope that car is gone by the time people get there, which it doesn't look like it will be, so that's slightly scary. And the first car for planet is F1 San, who does not improve on their lap time, doesn't set a valid lap actually. Let's see, as Colin Robb goes to the top of the time, so then a 1:19.9 there. First of the flying laps comes in. Pachuca has invalidated his lap as Lars now goes to the top by just under a tenth of a second. So Lars now sitting P1. Can Tusum react here? He's going to come across the line now. What can he do? He only goes P3 now. Just a tenth and, just 2 tenths off of the pole time at the moment. Is there anyone else on a flying lap at the moment? Mentos is going to get a slipstream here from, I believe, Bandini. That's an interesting combination there. Bandini's pulling Mentos along down in to the final chicane, but it is going to, of course, give him a little bit of dirty air through the final chicane, so that may hurt him there. But that is going to be a slipstream all the way down to the line. Let's see, where will Bandini go? Bandini does not improve, but Mentos goes up into the 4th position there. And that is your qualifying results, unless Daniel can get involved here. On the wet tyres, it does not look like he's on a flyer lap at the moment. Daniel across the line, and I don't think he improved there. So that is your grid for today's race.
It's definitely a mix-up from what we're normally used to seeing, I think, from these fantastic drivers. As Lars takes his first pole position in PSGL F9 for the Canadian Grand Prix in PSGL for the PS platform. Then we've got Hype Shoals in P2. Then we've got Karen Robb rounding off the top 3. Then we've got Mentos in 4th, Tusum in 5th, Pachuca in 6th, Felix 1 in 7th, Daniel in 8th, Jamie in 9th. The Pied Piper rounds off the top 10. Then we've got Paulie in P11, Bandini in P12. Then we've got Carlsbury in P13. Then Black Yoshi in P14. Vavabet in P15. Then we've got F1R San in 16th. And Dustley at the back of the grid in 17th.
So that is your grid for today's Canadian Grand Prix here in PSGL F9 on the PlayStation platform. just getting the drivers ready for today's race. It is scheduled to be a dry one. All drivers will have a free choice of tyres because they all qualified on a wet weather compound of tyre. So that means everyone will have a free choice. Some of them, they give us a bit more of a mix-up here. We'll see a lot of people, I imagine, go mediums. I think it's probably going to be a 2-stop race today. I'm not entirely certain. Maybe it is a 1-stop. I'm not entirely sure of that one there. But hopefully we see a mix-up of strategies here. With everyone getting a free choice, that means whether you start inside or outside the top 10, you can choose whatever tyre you want to start on. So the guy on pole could start on hards if he really wanted to. I don't think we'll see that, because especially at Canada, it is quite an easy track to overtake on, and the tyre wear tends to be not high, but it's with a short pit lane, you don't want to really do long stints in this race. So it'll be interesting to see what all these drivers do pick for today's race, which, if I must say so, is looking very sunny and much nicer in terms of conditions than qualifying.
Yeah, and just an update on the qualifying ban driver, which is the Alpine Reserve in Vavabet. He will be DSQ'd and handed a race ban by the stewards as he did not obey the qualifying ban procedure in PSGL, which he did set a valid lap in the qualifying session tonight, so he will be given a DSQ and a race ban for next week. Well, not next week, because next week is a week break in PSGL due to the real life F1, so that ban will take place in the Japanese Grand Prix in F9.
There is quite a mix-up of tyres at the moment. So your pole to the Lars has started on the medium compound of tyre. Hyped in second on the softs, and Carl and Rob, your championship leader by 12 points, is on the mediums ahead of Mentos on softs. Twosome also on the soft tyres, ahead of Pachuca, and then Felix 1 next car on the mediums, just ahead of Daniel on the mediums, Jamie on the softs. First car on the hards is the Pied Piper in the 10th position, with Powdy in 11th. Bandini, the driver, second in the championship, 12 points off the lead, starts 12th and will start on the soft tyres, so looking to try and make up ground early in this Grand Prix. Behind him is Carlsbury on the mediums, and it is Black Yoshi in 14th on softs, with Vavabet on hard, but let's be honest, that isn't going to matter given that he is now disqualified from this race. With F1R San in 16th and Dustley in 7th, the last car on the grid, and he will start on softs. Another driver perhaps looking to try and take positions early on in today's race.
Are now going to come through the wall of champions into their grid slots. I will hand you over to Jackson for the
So the drivers are now coming out of the final corner and trying to line up on the grid, getting ready for what should hopefully be an exciting race today. Final few drivers line up in their grid positions. From the grid is already in position. The entire grid is now in place. Lars on pole. The lights will now come on. The drivers will rev their engines. We're ready to race. And we are racing in Canada. Can Lars get a good jump here on the medium tyres? It looks like he has. Chopping across the Haskar of Hype as they dive into turn 1 then. It is Mentos trying to make the move on the back of Hype through turns 1 and 2. It is wheel to wheel between Carl and Rob and Pachuca. Carl and Rob has to be careful here. He can't risk any silly moves given his championship situation at the moment. Twosome sits behind here. He's got more battles further down the order in the chicanes. That is Felix 1 making his way up the order already, and he's in the wall. Felix 1 is in the wall. He got a bit of contact there with the Haas of Jamie, and that's wing damage for Felix and potentially wing damage on the Haas of Jamie. So that is early drama here in the Canadian Grand Prix as contact between two cars in just a few corners into this race. Just show how drama-filled this race can be, as they're nearly 4 wide going down the back straight towards one of the back straight chicanes. They're 3 wide going to it now. Let's see who's going to come out on top here. It is the Pied Piper, who's lost a couple of positions off this start, but not an awful start for him, as up at the front, Hyped has taken the lead of this Grand Prix, and they're wheel-to-wheel for the lead of this race here. Hyped using those soft tyres to his advantage at the moment. He's pulling over, he's trying to break the toe here as they make their way down towards the back straight. There's been a collision in the background. I think that's a spin for the Aston Martin, but they're wheel-to-wheel up at the front. Hyped will lead them into the final chicane now. All over the rear of him, though, is Lars. Hyped nearly into the wall of champions there on exit, but Hyped trying to hold on to the lead of this race after taking it in the lap. Lars is going to go to the outside of turn 1. Can he pull this move off? No, he backs out of it, sends Hyped in deep. He's going to try and go to the outside of turn 2. That's going to give an opportunity to Patuka on the inside, coming out of turn 2 now, up towards turn 3. They're going to go wheel to wheel into the chicane. Can they make the move? Patuka backs out of it and settles there for 3rd position.
Yeah, wow, what a fantastic start to the race there. Obviously unlucky there for Felix 1, who is now in the pits, as quite a few of the drivers are in the pits as well. And there seems to be a battle here for the position of P10 of the 2 Williams. So, and Bandini, I believe, is in this, but oh no, it's a battle actually for P9, as Bandini, Black Yoshi and Dusty are going to fight this, as it looks like Black Yoshi and Bandini are going to go side by side into the hairpin. Who is going to break latest? All as they touch a little bit, but Bandini is going to get the better exit out of the hairpin.
Making their way down now towards the final chicane. Once again, some battling here for position as I make their way through the chicane now. Hyped on the soft tyres, using the grip early on in this race, but Lars is keeping the pressure on in 2nd position. The medium tyres should be the better tyre in the long run here, but at the moment the softs should have the better outright pace. This is the first driver's chance to drive on the dry circuit here in Canada, so perhaps take a few laps from all to fully get dialed into this circuit, get used to having grip once again after the very slippery qualifying session. We've got a big pack here behind CPI Daniel, who's struggling on these tyres. He's got Powdy to the inside of him. Daniel not really enjoying these medium tyres, so nearly a bit of contact there between him and the Aston Martin. Perhaps there's wing damage on Daniel's car, because he was really understeering coming out of there, and that has now lost him another couple of positions as they make their way around. Black Yoshi, and yeah, Daniel must have wing damage. So he goes straight across the chicane. He must have picked up some wing damage, because he just can't turn that car at the moment, and he drops down the order. But up at the front, it is very, very close.
Yeah, the situation with Daniel, as he locks up into the hairpin and he clips the wall. I wonder if he has got the floor damage or maybe side pod damage, as that is a new feature in the F1 2021 game. But yeah, not a great start there for the Alpine driver, as he is now going to go into the pits as Lars sets, as Daniel gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and Mentos gets the fastest lap, as now Carlsbury goes even quicker with a 1:11.8.
All these guys getting tuned into this race circuit at the moment. Hype's causing a little bit of a train here. Perhaps doesn't have the dry pace that he had in the wet. But at the moment, Hype's causing a big train. The top 6 all pretty much nose to tail. And now with the introduction of DRS, we could well see some battling down the straight, especially into that final chicane. Expect to see a lot of drama down there. But it is Hyped currently out front here, half a second lead over Lars in second. Pachuca already with a 3-second time penalty, so is Mentos. Canada is a very tough track on track limits. However, to get a penalty this early on in the race is not helpful in the slightest for these guys. They're going to be on the back foot for the rest of the Grand Prix now, and they're either going to have to race conservatively as Hype breaks the toe, or they're going to push flat out and end up with more penalties than those round numbers. Fava Bet now gets a penalty as well. Hype's breaking the slipstream down the back straight into the chicane, closing the door to Lars. I think Lars is quite happy to sit in second place at the moment. It almost looks like it is Pachuca that's putting the most pressure on of the top 3, or is it, as Lars with a big run, can he do anything into turn when he's not using any ERS? And this group of cars sitting very still here. As I say that, it's Carl and Rob to the outside of Mentos going through turn 2. Can he make this move stick on those medium tyres? Still got his nose just to the outside of the Ferrari, but he's got to think at this one carefully now. His championship rival Bandini is up into 7th position, so Bandini is starting to recover in this race. And Carl and Rob can't afford to lose any positions here, but he does make that move on IFRA Mentos.
Yeah, wow, this is absolute fantastic race so far in PSGL for the Canadian Grand Prix, as it looks like Mentos is going to come back at Carl and Rob, but it will be later on the track, as they are now going to come up to the hairpin. Is he going to go for it? But there seems to be a bit of a battle up in front, as Pachuca is right on the back of that Alpha Tauri.
Pachuca really piling the pressure on at the moment, but Lars with the DRS on Hype really doesn't have much to worry about. But at the moment I think Lars is actually quite happy sitting in second position, because he's closing his DRS before he gets to the braking zone. He does not want to get past Hype, because I think he knows that if he gets ahead of Hype, he'll be in the exact same position as the Haas driver, just not able to pull away at all. Because at the moment, as he does attack to the outside of turn 1, but not doing much here. He's going to go to the outside of turn 2. That could put him under pressure from Pachuca. Can Pachuca go to the inside line here? doesn't like he's able to. But at the moment, the field's very much in a line, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. What do you think is happening here, Storm? Because they just seem to be almost not trying to overtake each other at the moment.
It's a tricky one because of the track limits in...
Oh, big moment for Pachuca.
Pachuca that has a little bit of understeer and just drops it. Yeah, I think it's going to cause a little bit of a DRS train, as I'm on board with the AlphaTauri driver of Lars. He has come into this tier, and I think he's just showing everybody, hey, I'm in here to mix with the big guys. I'm in here to show who I am and everything. As they come down the back straight of the track, Lars is going to get DRS. Well, they're all going to get DRS, as look at that DRS train behind Hype. That is one long train as they go through into the World Champions, one of the massive track limit warning places you can get a penalty. Look at Hype, he is trying to break that, but it doesn't look like Lars wants to overtake him.
Yeah, Lars not pushing too hard at the moment, perhaps trying to protect his tyres just a little bit. But at the moment, he's quite happy sitting in second place, and as I would be too, because you know that the second you're the guy out front, you're going to be in the exact same position where you just have to defend. And you just don't want people to try and attack you at this stage, because it's just, if anything, going to hurt you, and you could end up in damage. Like, that's the issue here. You don't want to put yourself in a position, as that's into the wall! That's Pachuca into the wall heavily, and that's going to be major wing damage, if not all of his wing gone, and it is indeed all of his wing gone. Pachuca is going to have to bring his car down pit road after attacking for second place earlier on in this Grand Prix. Pachuca is now tumbling down the order.
Yeah, that's not great for the McLaren driver, as he is now down to P8. But it does question if Lars is just dropping a little bit back into the clutches of Kyron Robb, as Kyron Robb is now only 4 tenths behind the AlphaTauri driver.
Indeed, he is. Let's have a look at Lars now. Can he attack for the race lead? It looks like he might be close enough in this case. He's going to go to the outside of turn 1. Can he make this move stick? He's all the way alongside now on the inside of turn 2. That's where you want to be. A little bit of rubbing between the top two. Carl and Rob watching this battle happen just in front of him. Bit of a slide and exit by Hyped. He tries to get the power down nicely. Carl and Roberts on the inside of Hyped. Can he get this move done? Hyped having to defend as hard as he can. Mentos now to the inside of Carl and Roberts. They go through this part of the lap. It's very tight through here, but also equally high speed to make their way through another one of the many chicanes here in Canada. Mentos on the outside, Colin Robb on the inside. Both of these guys with DRS as they're in this pack of cars. This is great news for Lars, who has almost got, I think he's broken DRS out front. Lars, this is his chance to pull away as these guys scrap it out behind, but is now Hyped down to second. Mentos up to third, Colin Robb loses out there to the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, as I have to interrupt there, as Colin Robb is going to go down the inside. Oh no, Mentos, and there's a massive incident for the P3 position, and Mentos has reset the track, and we nearly had an even massive incident with a Williams, but that is Kyron Robb up to P3.
Yep, they're battling hard here. It's got a battle here between Carlsbury and Dustley. Well, less of a battle, more of a pass, as Carlsbury charges past the Williams there with the help of DRS. The medium tyres now look to be the quicker of the compounds in this race. And Hyped in second. He's going to have to try and look in his mirrors. He maybe thought that once he lost the position to Lars, he could just focus on staying in that DRS, get pulled along by the AlphaTauri driver. That's not how things have gone. The attack that Colin Robb put on him has now left Hyped in a position where he has to try and once again defend from another driver. And he is sort of matching the pace of Lars out front. I think with DRS he would easily be on the back of him. But at the moment, Hyped has gone from defending from Lars to defending from Colin Robb, so not the ideal situation for Hyped, but Lars, meanwhile, out front, he's just going to make the most of the clean air whilst he has it, because it could well be an inevitability that we have a safety car in this race, given how close the racing has been so far.
As well, Bandini is sitting right behind his teammate, and guess who his teammate is sitting right behind? One of Bandini's championship rivals, which is Kyron Robb. So this could get quite interesting and quite tasty in Canada.
Colin Robb here, he's got a chance at making the move on Hype. He's going to go to the outside, he's going to go to the inside, nearly contact. Almost off the road on the inside, surely has to back that one and out of the race. Sanfueda has had a moment coming out of one of the chicanes. That could well be a safety car. It doesn't look like it will be though, as the Aston Martin driver is out of the race, but hopefully that is off the racing line and won't cause any further disruption to this race. Kyle and Rob all over the back of Hyped, doing all he can to defend from the Alfa Romeo driver. These guys are so close at the moment. They are racing all over the racetrack, and Kyle and Rob attacking so hard at this stage. They're both costing each other time. To the race leader, Kyle and Rob send it to the inside, or does he? Just perhaps trying to distract the driver in front of him. He's all over the back of the Haas car at the moment.
Yeah, it's an absolute banger of a race at the moment. It's who blinks first, who wants to take that risk and make the move. But it looks like Kyle and Rob just can't get that straight line speed he needs as they come down the back straight of the track. They're all going to get DRS. They are all within that 1 second, except from Lars. As it looks like Kyle and Rob's going to go down the inside of the Haas track, or as well. He's going to. Is he going to get the move done as there is black? It's new fresh tyres. He is going to get off. Kyle Rob has got it up to P2, and now the charge to Lars, who is 2.9 seconds in medium compound tyre.
It's very close here. He's now going to have to hunt down Lars, who is of course out front here in this race. It's not going to be easy to hunt down him, but at the moment Kyle and Rob pushing very hard here to try and reel in Lars. He's doing all he can now. He's got a 2.7 second gap. It's not going to be easy. That is a massive gap given how close the racing has been so far. But it is crucial that he does exactly what he's done, which is break the slipstream to Hyped, who is now finding himself under attack. And that is Twosome on the inside. A bit of rubbing going into the hairpin there. Bandini watching this battle happen ahead of him. But it is Twosome versus Hyped to make their way down the back straight. These guys are racing hard here in the streets of Canada. Hyped loses position. He doesn't have DRS down the straight. He's going to lose more and more time as they make their way down into the final chicane. We could well see pit stop soon, and we do see a pit stop now as Bandini enters the pit lane for Mercedes.
Yeah, as I believe one of us might have some mic issues. Oh, is it? Oh, I do apologise. 1 second. I'll just take it out and put it.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll talk for a minute whilst you sort that. But Blandini into the pits now and making his way out. Where will he come out here? He's going to come out in this pack of cars, I think. As he exits the pit lane now, where will this put him? Coming out of turn 2, he's going to come into an ice gap between Dustley and Powdy. So it's not an awful piece of real estate, but it is not perhaps what he would have wanted, as he has joined a train of cars. Luckily for him, he's near the front of it, so in theory these guys that he's racing should be quite quick. But if these guys are even a couple tenths a lap off the pace, he's going to really lose a lot of time here.
Yeah, is that any better?
It sounds good now, yes.
Yeah, alright. Thank God for that. I do apologise. It is some new headphones. As Jamie's out of the race. So will this cause...
Safety car.
And it's a safety car. So this is a gift to Twosome and Hyped. Also, maybe Lars as well.
Can they take mediums to the end? Softs to the end, sorry. I don't think they can't take softs to the end from here. Definitely not.
I have to interrupt you there, as there was a bit of a fight to get into the pits between Hyped and Carlsbury, as they both went into the pits side by side. So yeah, there's a bit of a Haas and Red Bull rivalry.
Valabet's in the pits for the intermediate tyres. He's just exited the pit on the intermediate tyres.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even be in the race. What is going on?
if you want to make yourself, stick out in a race, he's doing it, unfortunately, and this is his second race, and I don't think he'll be here very long.
Yeah, but the looks of things, he's trying to convert his race ban into a league ban, to be honest, the way he's going at the moment. It's not what I'd like to see. I want to see good racing. I bet down in 15th place, a lap down now in this race, and he's had plenty of chance to leave, and he's clearly not intending to do so. So apologies, viewers, for Valabet being in this race. If I would just try and ignore him is my advice at the moment.
Just look at the 14 drivers. Yeah, just look at the 14 drivers that are in the race, are providing some fantastic racing. And also, quite interestingly, we actually have the Aston Martin green car. Now, I haven't commentated where this car is in. I've normally been treated to the red Mercedes, so it is going to be Kyle and Rob who is going to be your now net race leader, as he is on the mediums. But Lars has gone for the hard compound tyre, so he will be expected to go the remaining laps in the race on the hard compound tyres, as all as Hype gets a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with Vavabet. I suspect that will be removed as Vavabet is DSQ'd from the race, as there was some issues in the qualifying session that he did break the qualifying ban rules, which has been noted and will be sorted by our fantastic PSGL stewards later in the week. But it is Rob in P1, Lars in P2, Twosome in P3, Black Yoshi is up to P4. Then we've got the Red Bull drive of Carlsberg in P5. We've got Dustly in P6. Then we've got the other championship rival, which is the Mercedes driver of FVR, Bandini. Then in P8 we've got Mentos. Then in P9 we've got Pachuca. Rounding off the top 10 is Paul D in the Aston Martin. The only Aston Martin left in this race, as his teammate has DNF'd sadly. Then we've got Felix 1 in P11. Then we've got the second McLaren driver of the Pied Piper, who got a podium in Austria a few weeks ago. And then we've got CPI Daniel in 13th. Then we've got Hyped Scholes in P14. Then Vavabet, who would be DSQ'd from this race in P15. Your only drivers to be out of the race and not going to finish the race is Jamie of the Haas and San, well, F1 San, as Vavabet has now retired, so he has done the right thing, as we are going to get back under racing, and I'll hand you over to Jackson for the race restart.
Kyle Robb, he stayed out in that pit cycle. It seems he's planning on going soft to the end after probably after another 10 laps in this Grand Prix, so he's taken a risk here on staying out. It's not something I would expect to see the championship leader do, but he is taking a risk here. He's going to stay out on the racetrack. He's got the hard tyre of Lars behind him, but back to green flag racing. Kyle Robb will lead the field here as they come back to start lap 15 of this Grand Prix. 21 laps remaining in this race. Kyle Robb leads them into turn 1. Lars on the hard tyres in second position. Lars is not going to have an easy life now. On those hard compound tyres, they're not going to be that strong at this stage of the race. Twosome and Black Yoshi behind him on the mediums. They're going to, in theory, be the stronger tyre at the moment. So expect to see Lars looking in his mirrors for perhaps the rest of this stint.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, as I think, to go on the hard. He may be, if...
your mic is lagging again, so I'm going to have to interrupt you there. It just cuts in and out occasionally.
I'll switch over to my old one.
Okie dokie. So yeah, at the moment, Kyle Robb, 8th lead. He needs to break the DRS now. If he can't break DRS, then he has no chance, really, of doing anything in this race, because he'll just keep the entire pack behind him. So when he inevitably pits, he'll come out a pit stop behind basically everyone. So he needs to break this DRS as soon as he can, for the sake of his Grand Prix here. As he makes his way now down towards the final couple of corners. It's a 7/10 lead he has. He's got a couple laps to try and pull that lead out. He's done a decent job on this first lap. Lars is not going to have much more grip, if any more grip, than Kyle Robb. I know Kyle Robb's on old mediums, but that's probably not feeling too much struggles in the Alfa Romeo there. The medium tyres after 15 laps, don't get me wrong, they're not fresh, but they're not going to be, they haven't gone off a cliff yet, so those tyres will still be reasonable, and perhaps perhaps even better than the hard tyres of Lars. The hard tyre is not a race tyre you'd usually use here in Canada, and as a result, Kyle Robb is pulling away out front, and it sounds as though we may well have Storm back.
Is that better?
That is indeed.
Yeah, I got the old headphones out. I do apologise, they're new headphones, and I think they need some time to wear in, but yeah, I can definitely hear you all on this one, and I hope you all can hear me on what is a fantastic race, I have to say, in PSGL for the Canadian Grand Prix. Also, it will be the last race before the week break. Then we'll be back racing after that week break for the Japanese Grand Prix, but we will be on for this race. So as I was saying, Lars on the hard compound tyre, that is quite an interesting one, as if there is another safety car, he's going to have to potentially make another pit stop.
I think he was perhaps forced into that decision because everyone else was going to make pit to the mediums and go to the end. So he had a choice. He could either pit for soft tyres and try and pull away and make another pit stop, or pit for the hard and just try and stay in the train of cars. I think he's made the right decision. Kyle Robb's decision, I perhaps suggest, is the most questionable one out of these guys. If Kyle Robb can break the DRS, which at the moment he's doing a very good job of, so if Kyle Robb can break the DRS, he has a chance in this race. He can try and pull away on those medium tyres and perhaps try and there's no way he pulls a pit stop gap over everyone. But if you can try and maybe get a 5-6 second lead, which I think is realistic, if he can do that, then maybe, just maybe, when he pits, he'll come out close enough to the field that he has time to charge back up the order. But at the moment, if Kyle and Rob isn't able to break that DRS and doesn't pull away from the pack, when he pits, he'll be a pit stop behind basically everyone. And in that scenario, he's going to really struggle. So at the moment, Kyle and Rob is going to be having to push maximum attack, and he's very much relying on these guys behind battling as Twosome looks at the back of Lars. And now I'm to defend from Black Yoshi, who's trying to get involved here. Bit of a slow chicane there for Twosome. Twosome's going to have to defend from Black Yoshi. So they make their way down towards turn 1 Black Yoshi. Will he go for the move? He does not go for the move on this occasion.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting to see how quickly Lars and Twosome have come into this tier. I believe they were in F10, I believe.
Oh, contact, Dustly. Black Yoshi's around. Big contact there between Twosome and Black Yoshi there. Sorry for interrupting there. I believe they were wheel to wheel going into the chicane. And I don't know whether Twosome didn't know that the Williams was there, but it looked like a lot of contact between the two drivers as they went into that chicane. I think Black Yoshi may have got away without any damage, but he did have a very big spin and has clearly overheated his tyres.
Yeah, as that is Black Yoshi again causing yellow flags, and I think that was a worthy interruption there by yourself. Yeah, I think Williams just may be looking for this week break because Dustly, he's up into P6, he's doing everything right, but his teammate has just gone the opposite way from Bahrain, and it's just not gone the same way, as I believe there is an overtake happening up ahead. Nope, I might have been mistaken there, but look at the DRS train behind Lars. It is absolutely insane. But Twosome is going to go down the inside of Lars, and Twosome is going to get up into P2, and Bandini is dropping down quite rapidly.
I think Bandini there was how it looked at Carlsbury as Carlsbury went wide, but I think Carlsbury managed to fight that one back and hold on to that position. But the racing here is intense so far. If you attempt one overtake and it doesn't go well, you lose
sector
those
1 yellow flags.
And that's Pachuca.
Sector 1.
He's lost his wing again.
I think everyone wants. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Oh, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say that second time for the wing being replaced with Pachuca. That probably is his race done now, unless there is another safety car in this race.
Yeah, I think some people may think this is Monaco and trying to see who can break the most wings. Oh, a little bit of side-by-side action. It looks to be... Oh, sector 2 yellow flags. That's another McLaren, which I believe is Pachuca. As Carlsbury is right on the back of... which would be Lars. Lars is dropping because of these hard compound tyres.
Yep.
So that's going to be quite interesting as Kyle Rob is on 19 lap mediums, as it looks like on the inside, but does not get the move done into turn 2, I believe this is. I'm not quite familiar with the track corners and names in Canada, but he does not get the move done, and that is a door firmly closed for the Red Bull driver.
Lars, these hard tyres, he was forced into the decision to go to the hards, but you can clearly see that the hards are just not the tyre, because look how quickly Twosome has caught up to Carl and Rob. It's like, clearly, Carl and Rob has not got the best state of tyres at the moment, as this is Lars now coming under attack from Carlsbury. Carlsbury backs out of that move there, but Twosome has already caught up to the back of Carl and Rob. So clearly these hard tyres are not working at all at the moment, as already up the inside goes Carlsbury on Lars. Lars now, it's damage limitation for the AlphaTauri driver. Perhaps he needs to try and settle into someone's DRS.
Yeah, as you mentioned that, Bandini had a cheeky look up that hairpin of Lars, as he's going to go for the move now on the AlphaTauri driver. And it's going bad to worse for Lars, as he now gets overtaken by Bandini, and that's Bandini up to P4 after a P12 start.
Lars now dropping down, still down in 5th, just not using the... well, he's got no tyres to use as he slides out of turn 2. He's really not enjoying these hard tyres, and we knew the hard tyres just would not be the tyre of choice here at the Montreal circuit, but I don't think we expected them to be quite this tough now, as they make their way around on the 21st lap of this race. There's not that long left to go. Just 15 laps left in this Grand Prix, and Kyle and Rob, despite doing well at the start of this stint, he's surely going to have to pit in a few laps' time just to try and salvage something from this race. the way it's going at the moment, this could well have another change in the championship, going from Kyle Robb looking like he might take control of the championship. It is now Bandini looking to try and get himself back into contention. As things stand, once Kyle Robb's pitted, if Bandini gets third, I believe that is 10 points. I think 10 points, if I'm not mistaken. Apologies, I got that wrong. In that case, and if Kyle Robb then can't get back into the points, that's the lead brought down to 2 points. As Tusum is attacking for the lead of this race now. Will he go for it into the chicane? No, he won't. He's going to back out of it now. I think Tusum needs to make it now into turn 1. But at the moment, he's staying behind the Alfa Romeo driver as they make their way into turn 1 once again. Can he do anything about it? This field is racing so closely, you know that if you make one mistake, you're going to get passed by the driver behind. So it is very much pass or be passed at the moment.
Yeah, and what's an interesting factor, as Kyle Robb has literally no ERS. He's got nothing to defend to anybody, as Tusum has got roughly around about 70% of ERS. This is, I think, potentially could be one of the races of the season in PSGL F9, as I believe Dusty and Felix have switched positions, so that is the Red Bull Reserve and the Williams driver, as Pachuca sets the fastest lap of a 1:11.0 on the medium compound tyre. But we are going to keep on board with this sensational battle at the front of the grid, as it looks like we've got a little bit of a four-way train here, potentially even more than that, as Lars has now dropped to P7, but Tusum is going to go down the inside of Kyle Robb and breezes past even before the wall of champions. And it looks like, I think Kyle Robb is in the pits. The Alfa Romeo is in the pits.
He's going to go for those soft tyres. Surely he's waited this long. Surely this is a call for soft tyres. Now the question is, will this be the right decision? I think the way we'll tell at the end of this race whether he was right to stay out under the safety car is comparing him to Lars. Lars was the driver who was in the same situation to Kyle and Robb when the safety car came out. They either had to pit for hard or to stay out and try and pit for softs later on. So let's wait and see if Kyle and Robb managed to recover here, because I think when that safety car came out, there was no good way of recovering his race to how good it was before the safety car. So I think it was very much damage limitation for both Kyle and Robb and Lars, and we won't know until the end of the race who limited the damage the best.
Yeah, and a quick note too as well, Felix 1 has got past Dusty, and I just wonder if Dusty has picked up some damage as he is dropping back quite rapidly to Lars, who's on the hard compound tyre, the only driver on the hards. Everybody except Kyle and Robb is on the medium compound tyre, a worn medium compound tyre now, as Dusty is just dropping into the clutches of Lars, Daniel and Hype. But what a recovery driver from Felix 1 in that Red Bull, as Dusty goes into the pits. So he's going to say to their mediums, no, I've had enough of them, and he may go for the soft compound tyre on lap 24 of 35.
I think a driver so far in this race that has really impressed me is Carlsbury. A driver who hasn't had the best of seasons so far. No real standout finishes that I at least have seen myself. I don't know if is there any that stand out to you. But at the moment, finishing second and putting the pressure on Tusum for the race lead, Carlsbury could well get a win today. And even if it's second place, I'd still say that is a very strong result for the Red Bull driver.
Wow, that might not just be the only Red Bull driver that may get a good result. This could be a special day for a special livery with that fantastic white Red Bull livery that was produced by the Red Bull team. As Felix 1 is the reserve driver for the Red Bull team, he could get them a very tasty point score for the Red Bull team. As we ride on board with Carlsbury, he's roughly around about 4/10 behind Tusum. He's got around about 40% ERS as they come through the Wall of Champions to start lap 25 of 35. 10 laps to go, as it looks like Carlsbury is going to go down the inside of Tusum. And is he going to get the move done? It looks like he has got the move done, but is Tusum going to come back at him? It doesn't look like it, and that is Carlsbury up to P1 for the race lead.
Now the question is, can Carlsbury do anything now that he's here? If he can break that DRS, then Carlsbury can maybe charge away into the distance and win this race. But unless he can break that DRS, I imagine Tusum will come fighting back. If he doesn't do it now, Carlsbury may well find himself with Tusum right attached to his rear diffuser for the rest of this race until the final few laps, when Tusum has to make the overtake. Because at the moment it may well be about saving your stuff for the end of this race, because if neither of them can break the DRS, then don't go for the overtake. Save what you have for later on in the race, because it could well come down to a final lap shootout, because at the moment these guys seem so close on pace that with the added extra of DRS, it seems that no one can break away out front.
Yeah, it is now going to be a 10-lap sprint, as look at Twosome, he's right at the back of that Red Bull car as they come through the wall of champions. It is now going to be a 9-lap sprint to the end, as Hyped and Felix 1 are having a battle, as... Felix 1 is in the pits. I thought there was a battle there, but we are going to keep on board at the race lead, as this seems to be where the action on the track is, as Twosome is now closing up the gap, it seemed to be, as Mentos sets the fastest lap on, it looks to be, where is he? He's P10, he's on 4-lap worn mediums, as Dusty now sets the fastest lap as well. He is on the fresher soft compound tyre. I just wonder if Twosome is going to get a battle, but look at Mercedes, they have now got to play team orders, as Bandini could potentially win this race if Mercedes do play the team orders, as Bandini is now sitting behind Twosome.
I think a big question now in this race is, do you pit if you're on these medium tyres? If you can get to the end, I think you have to just try and commit and try and get to the end. But if these guys can't, they will have to pit for softs. That is the question here. If these guys all have to pit for softs, then Carl and Rob could well come back into this race as a factor for the win. But at the moment, that is Carlsbury into the pit lane. Carlsbury does come down pit lane, so I think at the moment, if everyone is planning on pitting, as Lars could well be trying to stay out until the end of this Grand Prix, could well once again come into the fight for the win. It just keeps changing here in Canada. I thought everyone that pitted for the mediums was going to the end, but I was clearly wrong, because everyone that pitted for the mediums, they look like they're going to pit again in this race, which could well bring both Lars and Carl and Rob, two drivers that I thought was out of it. They may well both rejoin the fight for this race win here in Canada. It is a race that is anyone's at the moment, but up front, at the moment it's quite an unsurprising sight when you're as an F1 fan, but it's the two Mercedes up front here in Canada. I don't know. I don't know what strategy everyone's on. Will Twosome try and go to the end? Will Bandini try to go to the end? That is the question. Who is pitting and who isn't?
Yeah, everybody in the chat can agree with myself and Jackson. This is what league racing is about. This is what we come to watch, and this is what we come to see. Some of the best drivers on the PS platform and the PC platform battle it out on the track, and this is definitely tonight shown what league racing is about. End-to-end stuff, overtakes all over the track, end-to-end, up and down the grid, and I believe we are going to be set for an epic finish to what has been already a fantastic and an absolute banger in PSGL F9 for the Canadian Grand Prix just before we go to the week break, and it's not going to end here, I think, as Twosome is your race leader with Bandini right behind him, roughly around about 1 second to 9/10. Then we've got Hype Shoals in P3. Daniel has got himself up to P4, but do expect some pit stops being made late in the race. Then we've got Lars, the only hard compound driver, in P5. Then we've got Pauldy in P6, Kai Rob in P7 after his pit stop. Then we've got Mentos in P8. Then we've got Carlsbury in P9. Then rounding off for top 10, we have Felix 1. Then, there's a bit of an overtake for P11, I believe, as Dusty gets himself up to P11. Then we've got one of the McLaren drivers, which is the Pied Piper. Then in P13, we've got Pachuca. Then in P14, we've got Black Yoshi. Your DNS for the race so far is Vavabet, Jamie, and F1 Arsan. If you are in the chat, do get into the chat. Who do you think will win this race? It is so of a race where it is not going to be able to call by myself and Jackson of who is going to win the race or who even is going to be on the podium. So do get into the chat. Who will be your top 3 for this race?
At the moment, it looks like the Mercedes could end up battling for the win. If both of these Mercedes drivers plan on staying out, which by the fact that they've stayed out this long would suggest that they are going to go to the end of this Grand Prix now. That is the question, is can these tyres make it to the end of the race? If they can, then this is a battle between the two Mercedes cars. But in the event that there's a puncture or something along those lines, Lars and Carl and Rob could well find themselves in the battle. The highest driver that can definitely 100% get to the end is Lars. He is in 5th on the hard tyres. They will have no trouble getting to the end of the race. Their trouble is actually getting some decent lap times in. And then the highest driver behind him on tyres that can get to the end, the second highest driver that can get to the end, is Carl and Rob. This is two drivers that I wrote off just a mere 5-10 laps ago are now back in the fight here. But speaking of fight, it's the Mercedes drivers who are nose to tail here out front in the Leaders Canadian Grand Prix. Can Bandini take the win off of his teammate? Will he risk taking the win off of his teammate? It doesn't look like he's going for the move here. Could we see team orders here at Mercedes?
Yeah, this is where you make your bread and butter money. This is absolutely going to set up for a corker as Karen Robb and Paudy are battling as they go through turn 2. Look at the train that is with Karen Robb, as Karen Robb is going to get P6, I believe, as they go into turn 3. The iconic incident, what happened between Vettel and Hamilton a few years ago, but Karen Robb is now up to P6, so it looks like Mentos is battling as well. Look at this side by side between, it looks like Felix 1 and, no, that's not Felix 1, the two Red Bulls.
Oh, big crash.
No!
Oh no, Carlsberg is out of the race. The Red Bulls come together and a virtual safety car is deployed. What has happened there then? The Red Bulls come together and the race once again has another
safety car.
up.
It has been sorry to interrupt you there. It was a virtual safety car, but it is now a safety car, and I tell you what, this is an absolute special thing for, well, not a special thing, but it's an
Bandini
absolute, yeah,
sorry,
they're not going to
Bandini
double stack
out.
it.
Who does what now in this race? I have no words. Everything that could happen today has happened. Bandini now leads.
And I tell you what, Karen Robb is back into the pits, so he's going to go for fresh softs. So that rules that out. This helps Lars as well. The top two drivers, Bandini and Paudy, have not pitted. Paudy could have pitted because his teammate is not in the race, so he wouldn't have had the double stack issue. But wow, what a race we have on our hands here, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have literally, potentially a 5 lap, well, not even 5 laps. We could have potentially 2, 3 sprint lap. It's all going off in Canada. I think the drivers know that there is a week break coming up and they want to put on an absolute masterclass in league racing. And yeah, we are absolutely being with well, we knew Canada was going to give us an absolute delight of a race, but I didn't think it was going to be this chaotic and this delightful to commentate over. And I think this is one of the few places where you get some exceptional races. Obviously, we know there is races to come up in PSGL with the likes of Japan, Mexico, USA. We've got Brazil coming up as well. So there's still a few more races to come in PSGL, which will provide a few more fantastic races. But I think Jackson would agree with myself. This race may just be the race of the season.
It's certainly the race of the season so far. If this race gets beaten later in the season, I'll be honest, I wouldn't be complaining, because if this race managed to be topped as the race of the season, that is one hell of a race that I would love to see. But it's Bandini who stays out here. The question is, if this is, as things stand, there will be 3 laps. If the safety car comes in this lap, which it may well do, as the train is nearly all stacked up, it'll be a 3-lap shootout. The question then is, with 3 drivers who have stayed out on mediums, can Twosome on the soft, can Dustley on the softs, can Hyped on the softs, all of those guys on the soft tyres, and especially those on the fresh soft tyres, can those guys make their way up the order enough to get into the fight with Bandini? I think Mentos and Paudy, they could quite easily lose a couple positions here because of their their sort of older, harder tyres. But the question is, will there be time for those on the soft tyres to get to our race leader, FVR Bandini? This race is all to play for. This is anyone's race at the moment. Anyone could walk away from this. I would not be surprised if a driver that is currently outside of the top 5 wins this Grand Prix, because you know that this race is going to be just full of side-by-side action.
Yeah, as the safety car is now going to come in this race, and we are going to get back under racing for PSGL F9 for the Canadian Grand Prix. If there's any Lando Norris fans in the chat, then this may give you some flashback moments of that Russia race, which Bandini is now particularly in that same position. He is going to be on worn medium tyres. They are 20 lap Warren, and he has Pauldy right behind him with Mentos, who has a penalty, so he is going to drop a position no matter what. And are we going to get back under racing? It looks to be, as we are going to get back under racing, as Lars gets a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with Car and Rob, as Mentos has already dropped a position to Twosome, as we are now going to get back under racing, and it looks like everybody is going to be all nice and clean through, and Pauldy has already dropped a position, so the soft compound tyres are already in that optimal area, and it looks like there is a battle all over the track at the moment.
Twosome has had a brilliant restart, already up into second position and all over the back of his teammate. This is Twosome's to lose, surely, but will he overtake his championship contending teammate? That is the question. Is Twosome willing to put his teammate's championship challenge on the line here for his own glory? Twosome is on the back of his teammate now. Will we get DRS again in this race? We may well get DRS for the final lap of this race. They're free wide in the background, going into the hairpin. Who's going to come out on top in this battle? It's Felix 1, the Pied Piper, and Pachuca. Will they all survive here? The two McLarens battling each other. We've seen that it can all go wrong for teammates in this Grand Prix so far. But look at this pack racing here in the streets of Montreal. Who is going to come out on top here in Canada? The entire pack is all in a group as they make their way onto the 34th lap of this race. Bandini leads, but only by 2.5 tenths over his teammate.
Yeah, and I tell you what, this Mercedes situation brings me back to the battle of Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton when they had a
crash.
fantastic...
Dustley's out. Dustley's had a massive crash there as they came out of turn 2, and that is another car out of this Grand Prix, and it is Dustley who is now out of this race.
Yeah, wow. I don't think anything will top this. Oh, but under... Oh, no, that's in Sector 1. That has now cleared. But look at Hyped. He is right on the back of that Mercedes car. He has a penalty. He will drop. But is he going to go for it? They're coming down to the hairpin. He's having a look. The door closes on him as he comes through the hairpin. No, I don't think the DRS has been activated. No, it hasn't. So he's going to have to rely on his sheer pace and ERS, as Hyped will now come down the back straight as Twosome is now trying to break that toe. But look at Bandini. He is defending for his absolute life on their medium. Bandini gets a 3-second time penalty. He will not take the race lead, the race win now, if it stays the same way, as DRS is now enabled on the penultimate lap.
It is now a battle for the win. The battle for the win now is the battle for second on track. It is Hype Schulz versus Twosome here. Bandini will not win this race as the Mercedes cars are battling. That is nearly contact between the top two there. Twosome is all over the back of his teammate. Surely Bandini should let his teammate through here. Hype is going to go to the inside line, into the chicane. Who's going to go out on top here? They're absolutely wheel to wheel on the final lap of the Grand Prix. DRS is now enabled. Bandini, can he do anything out front to try and pull away? If anything happens behind, maybe he can still win this one. But Bandini with a penalty is going to have to look at his mirrors. What is going to be a crazy battle for the win in today's race. Hype is on the back of Twosome, but Bandini's DRS will surely allow Twosome to stay ahead unless anything goes drastically wrong here. And for the final time, we're on the back straight of this race. Twosome behind Bandini. Will he make the move, or will he use his teammate's DRS to his advantage to defend? Twosome's going to go for the move on Bandini. Bandini will let his teammate through. Twosome into the final chicane for the final time. And across the line they will come. Who's going to win this race? It is going to be the Mercedes of Twosome who wins, ahead of Hype Schulz in second. And in third place, it is FBR Bandini in a brilliant recovery from Felix 1 in fourth position. Lars getting fifth. And what a race we have just witnessed.
Wow, absolutely, simply wow. I think I might have a sore throat or a lost voice. I'm definitely going to need a drink after that one. Bandini is your in-game driver of the day. What a fair play to the driver. 21 laps on the medium tyre. And wow, the Mercedes, they may get some stick in real life for some boring races, but I tell you what, that race was an absolute banger of a race in Canada for the Canadian Grand Prix in PSGL F9. I'll hand you over to Jackson for the race results.
So, after an exciting Canadian Grand Prix today, and I think exciting is very much an understatement there, but it is a win for Twosome. I believe his first win in PSGL F9 ahead of Hype Schulz, who is an outsider for this championship, and maybe he will have clawed a couple points back in this title chase. So maybe, just maybe, hyped if he gets another few good finishes like that, he might just be able to get himself back into this title hunt with a second place there. Bandini takes third position from 12th on the grid. What a drive from the Mercedes driver. Just 1 3-second time penalty that got in his way. Maybe, just maybe, he could have won without it. In 4th position, Felix won. So much happened in that race. Felix won. I think he lost his wing twice in that Grand Prix. That is a brilliant recovery by him. In 5th, it is Lars, after doing that incredible stint on the hard tyres, where he was just holding on to dear life through that stint. He now, with the soft tyres at the finish, manages to get a P5 finish. The Pied Piper for McLaren from 10th on the grid will get P6, a decent result there for him. It is P7 for Powdy in the Aston Martin ahead of Carwin Robb, who will lose out a lot of points in the championship race today. And Mentos takes P9. Then it is CPI Daniel in 10th, and it is Pachuca who just misses out on the points finish today. And it's only 12 drivers in this race that cross the checkered flag line.
Yeah, and that is a fantastic race for any league racing fan that wants to see some of the best drivers in PSGL go side by side action, as that was the end of the PSGL F9 for the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for another week in PSGL for F9. There'll be no race next week, as the league is on a week break for myself and Jackson and this tier, as the real life USA Grand Prix will take to the track. But I think myself and Jackson can definitely say this race was nothing but short, but an action-packed race. So if you do like the racing that you saw this evening, or any of the streams in PSGL, or any of the content that PSGL provides, then do smash that like button, and do please hit that subscribe button, and do turn that notification bell on so you never miss any of the action in PSGL for season 29, as we are now coming up to, which will be one of the first week breaks in PSGL.